Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. Please join me for a moment of silence, standing for a moment of silence, and then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Kelly.
Present.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner O'Connor.
Present.
Commissioner Rapart.
Here.
Commissioner Lanier.
Present.
And Mayor Bliss.
Can I get a motion to excuse Mayor Bliss?
So moved.
Support.
Mayor Bliss is on travel, as we can all see this evening. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. That quickly takes us to the very first opportunity for public comment. For those of you who may be here for the very first time at a city commission meeting, there are multiple opportunities to provide public comment at a public meeting. And we give an opportunity at the beginning of the meeting to share public comment on the items that are listed in the agenda under our consent agenda, those items that we voted on and discussed earlier this morning. And so if you have any public comment that you'd like to make on any of those agenda items, this is your opportunity to do so. We'll give you up to 3 minutes to give those comments, and you would just step forward to the microphone to my right. Good evening, Mr. Miller.
Madam President, very nice. Good evening, fellow citizens. This is the House of the People. Watchdog Miller reporting. Welcome to Simon Legree Square, where black bus routes are still banned and buried beneath the wealthy viaducts. Joe Jones routes the 14, with Mother route the 14th of the 46th precinct, which is on the agenda tonight, still doesn't get down here. So it's an unfair process when the people from 46th precinct who are on the agenda here on 10-3 can't get here. The bus goes the opposite direction. Joe Jones works. He's run the Urban League for I don't know how long, but his bus is there. The Jim Crow 4 Eastern and the Uncle Tom Kazoo 2 don't get here either. The KZO2 runs Franklin, so it's unfair to them. So all of Joe's routes, the 2, the Jimco 4, and the 14 go the wrong way. They should be running up and down Monroe here and uphill Hill, Michigan. The usual, not as bad tonight, but still lack numbers. For example, on 9C6, various contracts, there are no dollar figures. Hope for upgrade with the new city clerk. 9A1, an appointment to the Downtown Improvement District. Why improve the district when you know darn well our bus routes don't come here, our Catholic bus routes and our black bus routes. So why feed more money into the DID? So anyway, it's on the agenda. On D1, that would be, I think, 9D1, Founders again. If you're going to detour our buses off Granville for Founders, and I brought up this conflict of interest before, Founders Brewing picked up at least a $1,200 Victory Night bar tab for Mayor Bliss, and all the bus routes, most of the bus routes in town are routed over there to Founders instead of here at City Hall. The Millers go back to 1879 on the west side here, and I know for sure when the Scribner Horse Rail line jumped the river, my grandfather and great-grandfather had better downtown service here than I have today, with gazillions of dollars, but federal bucks and capital funds alone wasted on that. So that was the Founders Conflict of Interest. Please don't block Granville, okay? Bus riders, including your constituents, Granville should not be blocked off for Founders Fest. Next, 10-3, the Chesapeake development. I've already reported we got too many voters in the 46th precinct. We're overloaded. We have to vote. It was George Hartwell's old Pilgrim Manor precincts. He made all those people go across the street to Yankee Clipper bus line. And also, please bear in mind, this is in a bird sanctuary, and I've already testified how the deer and raccoons are a jeopardized species. Well, you're out 6 seconds. You owe me 5 seconds now. Thanks a lot, Madam President.
Actually, Mr. Miller, you got an extra minute out of us because we didn't start the timer early enough. So you owe me 50 seconds. You owe me 50 seconds. Okay, all right. Any other public comment on the agenda items? And I should thank you, Commissioner Allen, for the distinction. I want to also make the distinction while we have someone else coming, that there are other opportunities to give public comment, and they are later in the agenda, and it's under public hearings. And so if you're here to speak on the 900 Granville Avenue and 919 Caulfield Avenue Brownfield Plan, that's later in the agenda, as well as the 2019 Housing and Community Development Action Plan. And then lastly, the Michigan State Historic Preservation Officer. Those are all public hearings. So is that what you wanted me to make that distinction? Did I capture that correctly?
Right, but Madam Chair, we're also, my apologies, we're also adopting, proposed tonight is to adopt the ordinance for the rezoning for what is known as Viridian Place. So
Right.
if people are here to make comment, now is the time to make that
Oh,
public
right, and I
comment.
think, yeah, so that was, I think I was responding to
Thank
that
you.
earlier, saying that it is a part of the agenda, so
Yep,
those who
thanks.
would want to give those comments would come up hopefully during this time. Thank you. Sir, if you
evening.
could please give us your name and the city in which you reside. And there's also a clipboard that I didn't mention. This is something new. We're asking those who speak for public comment to just
Very well.
sign their names there.
Good evening. My name is Paul Greenwald. I live at 1812 Forland Court Northeast. I am a member of the board of NECA. We're here to speak on the item number 3 under the, for a roll call vote tonight, the Viridian Place development. The board's position on this is the same as was in our previous written submission. We have reviewed state ordinance, we have reviewed city ordinance, have not found a legal reason to object to the development as proposed. Obviously, many of the people in our association would love to see single-family dwellings, but the proposal that is before the board does fall within the zoning, and we believe that the developer has done an awful lot to try to accommodate members, our neighborhood. They have met with our board, they've met with our neighbors. Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Kelly attended the most recent public meeting that we hosted. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else? Public comment on the agenda items? One of you can sign in while the other one is speaking. That'll speed that process along.
Hi,
Your
my
name
name-
and city in which you reside.
Eileen Ike Domagalski in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Can you pull the microphone a little closer to you, please?
Just to clarify the traffic study on the Chesapeake, Viridian development, I just want to state that, you know, they said it was at about 7,500 units a day are using it now. And they anticipate another 550, which puts it about, 8,000 cars. It's 9,000 to 10,000 a day, with the additional 750 apartments and condos being built around there within 2 miles. You're already putting it at 9/10 of its capacity, of Maryland's capacity. I'm sorry, I'm not being very clear here. It really needs to be addressed, 9/10, and this is just without all the further expansion in the housing now and everything else that will be developed in the expansion of Grand Rapids. I also wanted to address the 88 units being built on at the old Wealthy Street Church. They're allowed 88 units with 1 entrance and 1 exit. I don't understand why we can't have a crash gate on Chesapeake, and I really would like somebody to explain this to me, why that's not feasible. Mr. Jones has a crash gate in his community. Does that mean his crash gate needs to be removed? Accessibility and walkability, it still would be there between the neighbors. It's just the decrease in traffic up and down Chesapeake. Or split it with a green space in the area, in the middle, half entering and exiting Maryland and half going down Chesapeake. And also with the development, with the housing now and expansion of Grand Rapids, will the 130 units be it? Is that it? Nothing can be added to it with the housing now if that passes? I'm asking. And also, and finally, just counting a third of it as buildable is wrong. I understand it's legal, but it's wrong. Other areas acknowledge it, and if you ask me, it's bordering fraud. It's misrepresenting usable land. It's wrong. It's not accurate. And anybody who acts like it is deceiving themselves and everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you repeat your name again? I didn't capture that.
Eileen Ike Domagalski.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Hernandez. I am the volunteer president of the Neighborhood Association in regards to Viridian Place. And I just wanted to thank neighbors, the Second Ward commissioners, Mayor Bliss has worked on this project as well, who have represented the neighbors at large for nearly 10 years that this project has been in development. Also want to thank Sterling Homes and Land, Greg and Cheryl Hawerda, for their willingness to meet and modify this plan at least 6 times over the last almost 10 years. All in response to neighbor concerns. It is understandable for neighbors to have concerns with property values, traffic flow, and stormwater management. It is also understandable for neighbors to want to preserve that beautiful wetland and the rural feel of that neighborhood. We appreciate that Viridian Place will be an owned, market-based community. NECA hopes to continue discussions with Sterling Homes as planned for Viridian's Place continue to develop. We continue to encourage lesser density, and you guys know I'm tenacious, quality building materials and park-like landscaping. Also, we're not giving up on single-family market-based homes that will complement the existing neighborhood and contribute toward much-needed housing solutions for our city.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Support.
Any edits, questions, comments, colleagues? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. Madam City Clerk, we have petitions and communications.
We have a communication received from Heritage Hill Association expressing support for the conclusions of the district study.
That's received and filed.
We have the Comptroller's report for the period of March 21st, 2018 through April 3rd, 2018 in the amount of $28,433,941.33.
That is received and filed.
And finally, we have the Treasurer's report for the period of March 17, 2018 through March 29, 2018.
That is also received and filed. Now we're at the consent agenda. These are the items that we discussed in our committee meetings over the course of the day. And with one vote, we will approve all of the items that were approved unanimously through the committees. So can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. That quickly moves us to ordinances to be adopted.
Our first ordinance is amending Section 1 of the Budget Ordinance 2017-36 for fiscal year 2018. This is amendment number 17.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, Commissioner Allen, can you give us information on the budget ordinances?
Sure. This morning, the fiscal committee recommends 4 items to be approved for budget amendments. These are all pretty standard in nature. The most notable, however, is receipt of a almost $1.5 million grant from the state of Michigan. The state recently passed a supplemental road funding package. Our portion of that is $1.5 million. So that will add to our road work that we're going to, someday winter will end and we'll get to start our road work. So we now have an additional $1.5 million to spend on roads. So there was no effect on the contingent balance. These are all within budget. So.
Okay. Any questions or comments for our fiscal chair? There being none, we have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
and Commissioner Kelly.
Yes.
Okay. Our next ordinance is, oh, I'm sorry. Can I get a motion to
This immediate effect.
give this immediate effect?
So moved. Support.
And is that a roll call too?
No.
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? It carries. These ladies are vicious. Both of them were like, you're missing something. This is good. This is good.
Supportive.
Yes, yes, yes. I feel well supported. Thank you. Our next ordinance?
This is a zoning ordinance text amendment relative to the sale of alcohol for off-premises consumption and other miscellaneous amendments.
So moved?
Support.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes, well, I would actually like to amend this ordinance and postpone it until June 5. There have been ongoing discussions about this. The Chamber of Commerce has been gracious enough to set those up between Myers and I understand perhaps Spartan Nash and the neighborhoods, and they have one planned. I know the neighborhoods are meeting about it this Thursday, so I did touch base with several of those folks, and everybody seems to be okay with a 60 days rather than 90 days. So June 5 would be about the right time to to come back to this committee for a final vote on those text amendments.
So are you looking to amend your original motion for this?
I would like to amend this to postpone until June 5 to give, in order to make, to discuss and vote on the text amendments.
Do we have a support for her?
Support.
Any questions, comments, colleagues, on postponing until June 5th?
June 5, that's a Tuesday.
June? Okay. Okay. All right. So can you repeat your postponement motion, just to make it a motion to postpone?
Yes, I move that we postpone the zoning ordinance text amendments relative to the sale of alcohol for off-premises consumption and other miscellaneous amendments until June 5, 2018.
Support.
And we have the support. Okay, it's on the floor now. Any questions, comments, feedback? All right, all in favor of the
Aye.
postponement? Great, so then, the original motion, Madam City Attorney. Did that kill that original motion?
Postponed it.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you. Okay, next we have, I'm getting there. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Our next ordinance?
This is an ordinance rezoning 843 Maryland Avenue Northeast and 2128 and 2129 Chesapeake Drive Northeast to SD PRD, which is Special District Plan Redevelopment District. And this has been, the notice of hearing has been made in writing pursuant to Act 381 of Public Acts of Michigan of 1996.
So moved.
Support.
Commissioner Joan, you want to lead us in this discussion?
Yes, Madam President. This item is returning to the April 10, 2018 agenda for consideration after the results of a traffic analysis were conducted based on input received at the neighborhood meeting held on Wednesday, March 14.
Okay. Any additional
Suzanne? where-
questions, comments?
Yes, I don't know if, there's
Are you looking for
John
Suzanne to
Bartlett.
come forward? Okay.
We had some questions, probably for both of them, but John, if you could go over the results of the traffic study, and I know that we also have the additional questions that we heard tonight from Eileen and concerns, and I did email you about those, but if you could elaborate for the sake of, because the question came up, that would be excellent.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. John Bartlett with the City of Grand Rapids Traffic Safety Department. Following the meeting on the 14th, the residents brought up a number of issues that we wanted to kind of nail down and make sure that we've taken a really close look at. The first of all being the count. Our 2015 count that was used in the traffic analysis was, obviously 3 years old. And after further analysis, it ended up being done in June, so it didn't include school traffic, things like that. So at that meeting, we agreed to do a more recent count, which was done on the week of March 19th. So we picked up 2 consecutive 24-hour periods of count data. The higher of the 2 days was 7,281 trips. The other day was 7,185 trips, so 2 different days within a percent or 2 of each other, so pretty consistent results. Adding the 500 trips approximately from the proposed development, you get in the range of 7,800 trips on the street. A street like Maryland has a capacity of between 9,000 and 10,000 vehicles, so after the proposed development is there, they've got somewhere in the range of 1,200 to 2,200 trips of capacity left. So with that, we also did, I recreated the analysis that was performed by the developer's consultant to match their results, and then included the new traffic, so reran the analysis basically on the peak hour with the new traffic data. The proposed driveway intersection during the peak hours is still anticipated to operate at a level of service C. Anything level of service D or better is acceptable. Just to give you perspective, level of service C is approximately waiting between 15 and 25 seconds to make your movement, so relatively short wait times to make your desired movements. And then to follow up on that, I personally did probably about 6 hours of observations at this on Maryland from Leonard to the proposed driveway location to do a number of things, observe the traffic patterns, observe available gaps in traffic to make sure that there's comfortable time to make the left turn and right turn movements out of and into the proposed driveway location, which to kind of get into that right now. During the busiest times of day, what I saw a lot was you'd have a lot of cars in a row. So you'd get a platoon of 12 to 15 cars. So, a group of traffic where there's no gaps. But after that, you would have 20 to 25 seconds of no cars or very few cars. So there's a lot of available gaps to still make those turning movements. And kind of what's occurring here is Signal at Leonard and a Signal at Michigan is providing those platoons. It's letting a number of cars go through at once, and then those lights turn red. And then you get these gaps. And so those created gaps by the signals on either end will allow the traffic to move pretty easily from the driveway. Another concern brought up by Mr. Geske was northbound vehicles slowing down in a through lane with a lot of vehicles behind them to turn into the proposed driveway, which is mostly a concern at night when all these residents are returning home from work or school or wherever they may be. In the evening peak hours, the traffic is very directional. A lot of northbound traffic, very little southbound traffic. So those movements can be made very quickly because there's no opposing vehicles for them to wait for. So I honestly don't have a concern with those vehicles slowing down. They'll slow down just enough to make their turn, and they won't likely have to stop, and they'll just move in and be on their way. So they won't create a whole lot of delay for northbound traffic. The last was the sight distance available at that driveway location. Looking south towards the bridge, the peak of the bridge, which is kind of the last point you can see, is approximately 550 feet away, which is enough distance to make a left-hand turn if a vehicle is coming at 50 miles an hour. Posted speed limit is 30, and the 85th percentile speed from the traffic count was 38. So plenty of time to be able to see a vehicle coming northbound and make your left turns and make those decisions. To the north, the vision's obstructed for thousands of feet, so there's no issue to the north. So Commissioner Kelly mentioned some of the additional concerns of the neighbors regarding apartments and other developments that have popped up in the neighborhood or in the area. A number of these apartments are kind of far enough away that those residents will have to choose to leave Knapp or leave Leonard or leave other major streets to come Maryland, which there's likely some vehicles will do, but I don't think it will be all of them, and I don't even think it'll be a large majority of those vehicles. So again, there's 1,200 to 2,200 trips available of capacity left on the road after the proposed development that we're talking about tonight. So I think the sprinkling of traffic that comes from those other developments may use that capacity, they may not, but I don't think that will eat up the rest of the capacity available on the road. There's one other thing. Yes. The condos that were approved at Wealthy Baptist Church location and the concern of them only needing one access point, when they came to design team, we looked for other ways to either provide additional access points or consolidate access points along Michigan. So to the west, the property, there's literally homes in the way of any roadway connection we could possibly make. And then to the east, the two roadways that you could potentially connect to are both private roads, which we don't have the ability to force a connection to. So we weren't physically able to make those connections work. Otherwise, we would have pushed for that on properties such as that as well.
Thank you.
John, I do have a question. Can you compare the data from this most recent traffic study with the previous traffic study? Did it vary significantly?
It did not. So obviously the traffic volume went up. So we're talking about 7,300 vehicles a day versus 6,500 a day.
Okay.
But as far as its impact to the peak hour results and operation of the roadway, not a whole lot of change in delay.
Thank you. Any questions for John, or do you want Suzanne to add her piece too before you ask
Well,
questions?
I just want to thank John for your effort. I know you stood out all day and actually had quite a number of conversations with the neighbors. I appreciate your also talking to Mr. Geske, who had some other concerns where he's very happy that we have a light finally at Maryland and Michigan. But I really appreciate all the extra time and doing the extra study. I know the neighbors do as well. Thank you.
Suzanne? What were the other questions? Let's see.
In response to the questions that were asked, I think you have a FAQ sheet, and I'll quickly reference those numbers just so you can also see it in writing. Numbers 4, 9, and 24, I think, hit at some of those. The question about the Housing Now recommendations, which would be kind of similar to the question number 4.
Sorry, Susan, if I can interrupt. So does the public have what you're referring to?
They do. There's copies were provided right at the door. And
Okay,
there's probably still
great.
some
Just want to
over
make
there.
sure. Mhm.
The site plan is also at the door, so if anybody wanted to hold it, they could do that, and then it's up on the screens.
Great, thank you.
The question about the Housing Now zoning recommendations and whether it would affect this development and allow for additional units. This is a planned redevelopment, PRD rezoning. What that means is that the site plan that is approved by the commission is the site plan that the developer is required to follow. There are some allowances for minor changes, if there's a little shift in a building or something like that. But any changes, increases in density or changes in the unit types or the design of the clustering of the units that he's been proposing would require a change to the new zone district, to the PRD, which would be a legislative action depending on the degree of change. So at a minimum, it would go to Planning Commission. Any changes, though, in the increase in units would require City Commission action. So a larger process would need to occur if there was an amendment to the plan. It could not just be changed because the zoning ordinance was amended. It would have to, it's specific, what you're approving is an ordinance specific to this parcel. If that answers that, okay. For number 9 about the why aren't the wetlands and how do we calculate density, the ordinance is specific in how we calculate density. It's based on the lot area, and we pulled the definition of lot, we've looked at the area definitions, and it encompasses the entire property and does not exclude sensitive areas. So one of the rationales for that being that we want to preserve and protect those natural areas, but recognize that the overall density of the site still remains the same if you were looking at it from a developable property standpoint, that you could develop the entire site. And so we allow for the clustering of units. For example, the wetland setback that we have, and they are maintaining the 25-foot setback, and in some cases larger, that removes some of that area that they could develop, but the density calculations allow for that. There's no net loss potentially of developable area when you allow for the density and the clustering to occur. So as you can see, there's green space that's preserved because that clustering is happening and protecting those environmental areas. So the ordinance, that's the way it reads, and that's the way we have to apply it. So that's for that. The question about the traffic gate and whether or not that can be installed. The zoning ordinance, section 5.10.07, mobility and circulation, part B1A, requires streets and internal circulation drives shall be arranged to provide for the alignment and continuation of existing or proposed streets and drives into adjacent lots, developed or undeveloped. And the goal for that is to provide connection and enhancement of the existing street network. Some of the traffic problems that we have in our more suburban...
What number was that one, Suzanne?
Number 24, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Some of the problems when you get further out away from the street grid, particularly in some of the condo developments that were built in the 80s, where you have these crash gates and other things, is then all the traffic has to go onto one street. And so when we look at the difficulties that we have on our major arterials or some of these other major streets, is because of a lack of connectivity, that there's no other route to go. And in this case, that's why that amendment was made into the zoning ordinance, to require those connections, to prevent loading all onto one street, which affects congestion, it affects turning movements, and when you have an alternate route to go, that provision allows for that connectivity. And in our discussions, and John could also comment on that, it will actually also benefit the neighbors of Chesapeake by providing a way out for Maryland. If they're going southbound, they're not going to be going up to Leonard to turn onto Maryland to go south. They're going to be connecting through this street. And so it's really a mutual benefit for the entire area to have that connection. It's also a significant benefit from a public safety standpoint. You have a number of homes that are located in this plat to the north of this proposed development, and there's only one point of access off of Leonard. So this provides another access point to be able to get into the neighborhood. And I think those were all the questions, unless I missed something.
Commissioner Kelly, did
No, I
that
think
cover?
I think you did. I mean, we have a Q&A that everyone had that came from the neighborhood when we had a meeting at Sandy DeCoker's house, and from the earlier public hearing, the collection of questions that we had. And then as I got them via email, I passed those on to you. So I really appreciate all the extra work you did on that, and the time you took out, as well as Dan Tabor, to talk about this at Sandy's house. And I want to thank all the neighbors. I know this has really been difficult. This is the third go-round for this. When I got on the commission in 2010, it was a proposed 200-unit development, and that was apartments. So thank you, too, to the Hallwardas. I know this is difficult for you. It has been quite a journey and a lot of waiting. And to my fellow commissioner who walked the ground, thank you for allowing us to walk around the property and take a good look at it. It was nice for us to see, certainly for me to see, the improvements on the Waring Drain, because that was an issue in the neighborhood that I worked on for about 3 years. I know you did, Tom, and so did the county. So again, I just want to thank everybody. It's been a challenging development, and I'd say that's an understatement for all. But I just hope that in the end that this will be something that's a positive for the neighborhood. I do know that there were concerns about decreased values of homes in the area because of the development. I also know that we're not seeing much around decreased values of anything in the city right now, and so I don't know if Commissioner Allen, you're kind of an expert in this area, if you want to speak to this.
Yeah, Commissioner Kelly asked me to take a look at this in relationship to some comment in the entire city between 240 and 300,000. Out of that 22, 5 are in a neighborhood, but they're under construction, so they're not even done yet. And 13 are downtown condos. So if you want to live in a neighborhood and you can afford between 240 and 300,000, there's only 4 homes for sale in the entire city. 4. So my perspective, just somebody that works in real estate and has for 20-some years, I know that a different type of home, these are townhouses and other condominiums, coming into your neighborhood at a high volume would be concerning. For most people, their home is their most important asset, and so to watch out for that and care for that is something that I can commiserate with everybody. But I can assure you, based on what I can see in the marketplace and based on what I've seen from the design and the elevations for this development, I don't think you need to worry about your housing values at all. In fact, I think that the market will. People will be purchasing these as fast as they're being built, and at a higher price than probably what you would imagine.
Any other question? Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, Madam President, I just want to join my colleague, Commissioner Kelly, in thanking all involved, in particular the Neighborhood Association and the work that she did in terms of convening, as well as the neighbors and the multiple voices that were heard throughout this entire process. I didn't have the historic context that my colleague had in terms of the different iterations of this particular piece of land over the years, but I think that I do want to recognize the fact that the developers, I thought, were very amenable to change. There were more than a few times when there were requests made to the developers to change the makeup of the units and the size and the structure and all types of things. And to their credit, the developers were very open to that. And I don't think that there was ever going to be, I think, a place in which all parties involved were completely and totally happy, and which makes it, again, frustrating and probably somewhat difficult to accept the potential of these housing units being built. But I will say that I think what occurred over the course of time was very robust engagement, and voices were heard, and again, there were changes that were made that, quite honestly, didn't have to be made. And again, to the developers' credit, they were open and amenable, recognizing that, you know, these were their neighbors. And quite often, I feel that, you know, it's those who have been there who are in a position to where they can say, hey, we were here first, and we have certain requests and desire to have our neighborhood look a certain way. But there's also the reality of having a property owner who has the right to build what they want. And so again, the fact that we've gotten to this place where we have units that, again, may not be perfect in the eyes of all involved, in particular the neighbors, I think it really came down to a point where we reached a place where there was some form of common ground that was met. And so I will be casting a vote of support for the project as we move forward on this evening. So.
Okay.
Well, just one final thanks to Nika. I know it took a lot of time, and you are volunteers, so no small effort. And this is the second go-round for many of the folks at Nika as well, so thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? All right. This is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
and Commissioner Lanier.
Yes. Okay, next we have our public hearing. So here's another opportunity to give public comments. We have 3 of those tonight. And if you can read, Madam City Clerk, the first.
The first public hearing is to consider a brownfield plan amendment for 900 Granville Property LLC for a project located at 900 Granville Avenue Southwest and 919 Clawfield Avenue Southwest. And this hearing to consider the approval of the brownfield plan amendment has been noticed in writing pursuant to Act 381 of Public Acts of Michigan of 1996.
Kira?
Good evening. Tonight's public hearing is being held to assist in the facilitation of grant funding for an environmental site assessment on a property that is being proposed to have environmental site assessment activities conducted at the property. This would include pre-renovation, asbestos and lead base paint surveys, and due care activities as well. Through the Brownfield Redevelopment Program, we have the ability to grant dollars to facilitate the early stage investigation of environmental activities. And so therefore, this project total cost is estimated at $26,000, of which, pursuant to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority's Local Site Remediation Revolving Fund, 75% of the costs incurred, or $19,500, would be eligible for grant funding under the program. The Brownfield Act requires that the Local Site Revolving Fund may only grant funds for eligible activities on an eligible property, which this is. And at this time, the capture of tax increment revenues by the Brownfield Authority is not being proposed. However, if the developer proceeds with the project, then potentially this could come back to you in the form of a revision to this Brownfield Plan amendment. So this is a unique opportunity, and one that we're really excited about because the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has grant funding available to begin that early stage work on investigative needs that developers have. And tonight we have with us Javier Oliveira and his wife Carrie, and they are the developers of this property at 900 Granville. And so I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, invite them up to talk about the project that they have proposed on Granville.
Great. Any questions before?
Actually, I
Kelly?
have one question that's really not related just specifically to this project, but it is about, and I don't know if you've ever had a situation like this, but the question I got from a constituent was, what would happen if the contractors who eventually remove and dump the materials, if they do it improperly and are no longer in business, then I assume the city's on the hook for that, or should the question was?
So this is just for the assessment activities. It's not for the actual environmental due care activities to take place.
Okay.
That would come back to you.
Okay.
Now, if the contractor improperly disposed of materials, that is not on the city. That responsibility lies with the contract holder, which would be the owner of the property.
Okay, well, in this case, apparently, oh, the owner of the property as well, not just the.
Yeah, the
person that
developer
dumped
would
it.
be
Okay, good.
responsible.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Javier, you're going to come forward and give no comments to give before we open up the public hearing? I'm not trying to force you. I mean,
All right, I'm Javier Olvera, owner of Supermercado Mexico. We've been in business for 11 years, and we're doing business in Wyoming in Grand Rapids, so we like to invest in Grand Rapids. So this will help the city of Grand Rapids, and also I think it will be a good win-win situation for both parties. We're planning to invest about $2.5 million in this building. We would like to turn it into a plaza, Hispanic Plaza. And on the first floor, we'd like to do retail, Hispanic restaurants. Second floor, we'd like to do office space. And we also would like to start a farmer's market in July 16 this year. So I think this will help both parties. So the more we save on this, we'll be able to inject more money into this building.
So we will now open up the public hearing. For those who would want to provide public comment, you have up to 3 minutes to do so. You can take a seat, Javier, and if they have questions, we may call you back up to respond to those questions.
Good afternoon. I'm Pastor Adela Williams for Family United for Justice and Equality, and I have a comment on how can the rural field get a grant to remodify on Granville when the children doesn't even have a place to go to learn soccer and basketball. The little building that they did have, the city took it from them. And I'm wondering how you can always invest in large business and the children are still set aside. There's nothing on Granville. We protest about the parks and all that. Nothing's done. They don't have anything. But yet and still, they're coming up with grant money, thousands and thousands of dollars to build a place, to have restaurants and all that. But what about the children? What are you going to do for them? I don't understand. I would like to have a meeting that somebody can tell me. How is it that we are always being pushed out and the big people are coming in, building big building, getting grant money, and they couldn't even get grant to keep that little school, that little building open so they can learn soccer and have that park open so they'll be able to play. There's no swings, no nothing, in neither park over in Granville. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to provide? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is LaDonna Norman. I have a question for the owner. He said he was potentially going to have a fruit market where, well, I'm a little confused about that because there is a difference of the market on Fulton and Fuller than there is at MLK during the summer. So I'm a little concerned, just like Pastor Williams got up here and say, you know, everybody has the numbers that are accurate for property values, for credits, for grants, for boards, and it looks slummy over at the skate park on Godfrey. These kids have nowhere to go. So when you invest the money in the business, you're not investing in the children. They're gonna find extra things to do, like steal and break in people's houses and destroy property. That's what they do when they get bored and they don't have anything to do. So my question is, what are we gonna do about that? The children and the market, is it gonna be something affordable for the community? Or is it gonna be like the downtown market where I need $50 to $100 just to purchase some fish, $30 for a tray of sushi? You know, come on, let's get it right now.
Thank you. Any other comments for this public hearing? There being none, Kira, would you like to come forward and explain the difference between these grant dollars and maybe parks and funding structures and things of that nature? I don't know if David Marquette is here to talk about even the investments from into parks nearby, but if he's...
The funding for this program comes directly from the other projects that have been funded throughout the city. So they are tax dollars coming in from other development projects that have been successful, and the state law allows for the capture of those taxes to be granted back towards environmental activities, specifically for that investigation work.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I just wanted to just say in response, a couple meetings ago, we just approved a pretty significant grant for Clemente Park so that park will get significant investment as well.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions, comments? Okay. We will refer the comments from this to the Committee of the Whole. Our next public hearing?
This public hearing is on fiscal year 2019 Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan.
Good evening, Connie.
Good Good evening. Tonight we're obtaining public comments for the FY 2019 Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan. That plan serves as our application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for our federal programs, particularly covering the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Investment Partnerships, and the Emergency Solution Grants programs. We provided to the City Commission on March 27th funding recommendations for programs and services that supported our neighborhood investment plan, as well as services for homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing. So that public comment period actually started on March 23rd, and tonight's is the public hearing portion of it, and then public comments will remain open through April 23rd.
Connie, can you state how those who may want to provide public comment through April 23rd, how they would go about doing so?
Sure. So after tonight, you can provide comment in writing to the Community Development Department directly, and that can be sent via email if you'd like at communitydev@grcity.us, or it could be mailed to our city offices at 300 Monroe.
Thank you. So now we'll open up this public hearing for anyone who would like to give public comment on the Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan. You have up to 3 minutes. Good evening. State your city and city of residence and name, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joel Ryder, 490 Marywood Drive, Grand Rapids. I'm here as the Executive Director of Home Repair Services, one of your partners in this plan. We'll celebrate our 39th year of service to the Kent County community at large, and all 39 years the City of Grand Rapids has been one of our trusted partners. So I'm just here to say thank you so much for your continued trust and partnership in our work. The last program year together, we were able to get into 475 Grand Rapids homes. The type of work that we were able to do there included 11 furnace replacements, 45 furnace repairs, 250 plumbing repairs, which included 47 new toilets. 102 roofs were repaired. 9 bathrooms were modified for safety issues for seniors and others. And we also got 5 wheelchair ramps in terms of our work together with the CDBG funding. So thank you so much for your continued partnership and your support of lower income and vulnerable homeowners. We relish your partnership and hope it continues. Keep advocating for those federal dollars. They are so important in terms of supporting successful homeownership for all in our community. I'd also like to thank you. Last meeting, you approved a contract with Home Repair Services for the refuse cart program, which also serves over 700 residents who cannot afford to have a refuse cart without this particular program. We partner with the city to make sure those folks get enrolled and manage the program with your support. And it's another way that you support low-income home ownership and successful home ownership. Small way, but it's very important. So thanks again for your trust in that particular contract. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, did I see you coming forward?
Watchdog Miller back. I was looking for the annual caper to come across our horizon. This may be a different name than the caper. In any case, past years I requested that the material be indexed in the back of the room, back of the position paper, 80 pages or so that we could go right away, for example, to veterans or to poverty or non-smoking. And every year I testify that the senior citizens, those units that are substantially subsidized by the federal government, should have non-smoking, should have a guarantee of non-smoking, just as just about everyone else in the community. On that side of town, every single jailhouse has non-smoking, military has non-smoking. Those who live in Grand Valley, you have non-smoking campuses, GRCC, but we're excluded. It's never, senior citizens are never considered. David Allen put himself as kind of a senior czar. He's done nothing on. He put himself. He said he poked back at AAA and didn't see any senior citizens. Actually, they only have two ARP subsidized employees who for 6 months, and everybody else in back of there, if you push back, is either all millennial princesses or entrenched boomer bureaucrats. So we have no voice in this town. It's just high time for our very own health sake that we get non-smoking. In my flat, the federal government gets $450 a month sent off in subsidies as they just invoice the federal government on it, and for all that money in return, I didn't know, what is that, $5,000 a year plus? We ought to be getting non-smoking. I'm a veteran with an honorable discharge, and my fellow citizens deserve non-smoking, and it's never been addressed. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, Russell Olmsted, Westside, Grand Rapids. On this, I was trying to look up the info on the actual Housing Community Development Annual Action Plan. It's listing that it's at www.grcd.info. The webpage is down. I don't know if anybody knows that right now, but it's not up. So but just also for the people here in attendance who want to get information on it, that's where you can find it once this issue is resolved. Again, that would be at www.grcd.info. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again, Pastor Adela Williams. I want to make a comment on the part about housing and community development. I think I called Commissioner Lanier about 4 or 5 times in regards to homelessness for the veterans. I think it's bad when they go to the war and fight and get old, like 74 and all that, and can't find a house. It's not that he doesn't have income, it's because they keep putting him out of his home and he's afraid. He pays his rent, but they wanted the house back, so they put him out on the street. And something needs to be done. He did apply, his children applied for him for Adam apartment, but they denied him because they said something about a light bill. I wouldn't mind if somebody would take a little effort and look into his situation. His name is Reverend Richardson. He came once to the committee, but he didn't know how to express himself truly. So you all talk about veterans and what they have done. It's time some action for them. And I know I got to wait for the public comment.
Thank you.
My name is LaDonna Norman. I was just curious if the housing and community development is still going around the inner city.
Wait just a second. I think I'm getting confused. You all are giving repeat comments on the same public comment?
Well, hold on. I don't know what we're doing, but wow.
We're not doing that.
Oh, I know.
I think that's what we're doing. I think we're on the same, are you all giving comments on the same public hearing, or am I wrong? Just
I'm
trying to
on
find
the
my
community development.
Okay.
I had commented about the Granville. I just wanted to know
Following you
if
now.
they
Go ahead.
still, okay, if they still going around the inner city of Grand Rapids where elderly people own their house and have no liens on their house, and they're making them get loans to improve their houses because of the quote-unquote gentrification. And I just heard this guy from Home Repair, he's full of crack. Man, people have been putting on waiting lists, calling me about stuff. They pick and choose when they want to help. And you guys are giving grants and loans to people who pick and choose who they help. They came in my house, they tore up our ceiling, and they left it like that. They tore up our toilet. That's how we became a candidate for one of their toilet toilets at 1110 Watkins. So I'm telling you, you guys need to stop, get your stuff together and stop bullying people out of Grand Rapids, because I see how you perk up when you talk about numbers that you can benefit from. Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment on the Community Development Action Plan? Connie, there are quite a few comments made. You want to try and address some of those tonight? You want to pull them all together during this public comment period?
Yeah, typically we don't address the comments unless someone has questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. But the comments get wrapped up into our submission, our plan. So again, this action plan is our application to the federal government for those resources that come into the community, and they're for activities that will cover the third year of our 5-year plan.
So one of the questions that I thought I heard from Mr. Miller was tied to funding that's given to organizations who have non-smoking or something regarding non-smoking, and if that's a requirement, if you can make that clarification, as well as Russ's piece about the website being done, and
Sure.
if you expect that to be up soon.
Well, I actually pulled it up at noon today because I was looking for something in the document, so I knew it was working then, so I wasn't aware that it wasn't working. So we'll
Okay.
make sure tomorrow morning that we have someone looking into that. But in regard to smoking, we don't have any requirements or issues that we address regarding a smoke-free environment, so I'm not quite sure. I can talk to Mr. Miller after the meeting to find out what it is he's really wanting to address, but our plan, we do not have any specific projects or requirements to do that.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Allen?
So Connie, I want to tax your memory a little bit. How many years have you been in charge of the Community Development Department, roughly?
Since 2000.
2000, so
Yeah.
18 years. So right now we have about $6 million in total. Where was it in 2000?
So with our, I'm sorry.
And we're to get to where we are now. I was trying to see how much we've dropped.
Right. So when I first started in community development, we would program approximately $6 to $6.5 million annually, which was a combination of our entitlement dollars, the actual award from the federal government, and program income that we would bring alongside of that. Today, we're allocating, that was just for CDBG. That did not include ESG and other funding sources. Today, we are allocating, in our recommendations, allocating approximately $5.3 million, which includes the Community Development Block Grant, home investment partnerships, and the Emergency Solutions Grants Program. So you can see that it's actually reduced significantly. We were very happy, though, that finally the federal budget had been resolved for these programs, and it was proposed to be zeroed out, and we are actually anticipating a slight increase for the Community Development Program. That news came about after these recommendations were put into place. And you may recall we had some contingency provisions built into that.
Then I have a follow-up question, and this is just really 50,000-foot level, but so how many of these programs that encompass this are based on the HUD funding are prescriptive? In other words, we have to write the grant for the program as opposed to, the market changes constantly, and, certain programs require really deep investments on a few amount of houses. If a group came together and came up with a way to spread that across a whole, something that is kind of out of the box, out of the ordinary, we can get more units done for less money. Would that be able to fit with this program, or how much of this is actually prescriptive?
Right. So I would say that at the local level, we have a lot of flexibility when it comes to, in particular, the Community Development Block Grant Program. Because that, if we identify what the outcomes are that we're trying to achieve, then we can be creative about how we get to those solutions. And that's part of the application process. When we ask for submission for proposals, we do not we're not seeking for you to tell us, what it is that you want to do. What we want you to tell us in those applications are how you're going to address a particular outcome that's established by the City Commission or approved by the City Commission. So that neighborhood investment plan, for example, is something that can be changed at your prerogative. And we do that through that 5-year planning process where we go out and solicit the community about community needs and then try to consolidate that into a plan that has some actionable areas, and then we solicit for proposals to address those. Does that answer? So you do have the ability to have some creativity, but you are locked into that 5-year time frame. we can make changes, but you have to do a lot of work to make changes in that 5-year plan. There's a, sort of a bureaucratic process to do that.
Where are
and so
we at
it's
in the
good to
5-year
do
plan?
that. So these are allocations for the 3rd year of our 5-year plan.
Okay.
For Connie? Thank you. That will close that public hearing. And LaDonna, I apologize again for interrupting you. Where I was writing notes was near where I had written notes for you before. I'm like, so it confused me. So my apologies. We'll close that. And then public comment is open again, Connie, until April
23rd.
23rd. Thank you. All right. Our next public hearing?
This is a public hearing on programmatic agreements with the Michigan State Historic Preservation Officer.
Okay, so this is actually tied to the last public hearing. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act requires the federal government or federal agencies to consider the effects of their activities on historic properties. So when we get funds from the federal government, HUD pushes that, I should say shouldn't push us, graces us with the authority to take care of that Section 106 reviews. To do that, we have a partnership with the Michigan State Historic Preservation Officer so that we can have projects reviewed and cleared on a more quickly than having to submit it through the state. So these two agreements are very important to us to have timely projects and get things cleared as quickly as possible because it can take several months to get it through at the state level because they have limited capacity and staffing. There's 2 agreements that we have in place. One is for construction projects, or I shouldn't say construction, for projects that deal with lead hazard remediation specifically, and those that do not address lead hazards. So they're 2 separate agreements. And they cover all the activities that are identified in our annual action plan from the last public hearing. And again, tonight is a public hearing for verbal comments, but we will continue to take any written comments through April 23rd.
Thank you. So now we have the public hearing open regarding the Michigan State Historic Preservation Officer. Any comment? Great, so we will close that, and if you receive additional comments, we'll just expect to kind of hear those updates on the next time we have it on the agenda then, Connie. Thank you. So that brings us to the final opportunity to give public comment. And again, you could, at this point, you can speak on any issue outside of the agenda that you'd like to talk about. I guess you can also talk about the agenda items too. If you could please write your name down on the clipboard so that we can make sure the city clerk captures names correctly so that for the record, your comments will be captured correctly. And you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak at this same microphone. Ms. Norman?
I just got a comment to make because I've been gone a couple of weeks due to my health and not having a vehicle. But I want to just share with you the damage is done. The gentrification in Grand Rapids has discouraged a lot of people, especially African Americans. And I looked at David Allen when he discussed numbers on a project, but I bet you he couldn't tell me how many children are affected by homelessness. In the last couple months, what I did was I took the bus, I canvassed areas, I lived like I did not have a pot to you-know-what in the window to throw it out. And I had a young kid say, I don't care if I get locked up, at least I have somewhere to go. He said, all we do is sit in this hotel room. So if you can tell me the property value of somebody's home, can you tell me the future of these children in these hotel rooms? 10, 12 kids. That don't make no sense. And y'all sit up here and y'all saying, we got groups, we got grant money. The damage is done. Instead of looking for the homeboy with the saggy pants, you need to be looking for the white dude with the Bermuda shorts and the polo Docker shoes on with his crystal meth and his heroin. Because the drugs are changing in the inner city because we have a different income bracket. Rich people don't smoke crack, not a lot of them. They like the more, uppity drugs. But the damage is done to the children, to the residents that you've displaced out of Michigan. And I can't help believe that each and every one of you hold some accountability for that, because we are not important and we don't feel important till you need our vote or till you need some community dollars, which I think is just like the city of Grand Rapids has become the pimps and the hoes of Grand Rapids, and it's really embarrassing. So I'd prefer to tell somebody I was from Wyoming before Grand Rapids, and that's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend?
My name is Johnny Townsend, a great, I've put my address down there. What I wanted to talk about is, I think this situation is on the hand, because a few weeks ago I came down with a complaint about a medical facility that I was going to, and at the time I passed out a pamphlet that where my blood pressure was 244 over 130, and they had told me to wait until the next morning. I'm not going to mention that because I talked to the chief executive director today. His name is Mike LaPena, and he spelled, I don't know, I'm not pronouncing it right, it's L-A-P-E-N-A. He's the chief executive director of that, and he said that he was straightening his people out because he noticed that there was a lot of negligence going on among them. They not only sent me home with a blood pressure like that there, they also had a lady, I was passing out her brother's book down here last year, whatever it was, Broken Promises or something other that was written by a police officer. They told her to go back and go to bed, and she had double pneumonia. But this guy says that he was going to straighten that out, so I'm going to wait. I'm not going to even mention the name of the place until I see what he's going to do. He said that he was going to straighten it out, and I told him that if he didn't, that I would probably go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I'm really good at doing that there. Hey, but what I wanted to say was she was talking about this housing for elders. Do you know that Comcast have a monopoly on elder people, not the Grand Rapids City housing, but other people that live at the other housing? The only thing that they can get is Comcast. And Comcast have a monopoly on that, and these people get a kickback from Comcast. And they are robbing the elders. So the lady that was talking about the housing for seniors and low-income people, I'm thinking that should I be talking to her or somebody else about that? About somebody that that is fleecing elder people. I have already called the ARP and what you call it, ARP? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking that they maybe be getting a kickback themselves because they refuse to do anything about that there. They said that is out of their hands, just like they say the auto insurance is out of their hands. They don't do nothing about the elders. But if Comcast have a monopoly on that there, ain't that infringing on our freedom or something? Freedom of choice? Maybe I should talk to this lady.
You can certainly ask Connie. I'm not sure that she can answer a question that different apartment complexes with what contracts they would have with other agencies, but
only the ones that got
private,
the ones private businesses, the ones that they build, the ones that they own. The city don't do that. You can get any cable network with the city, but those private contractors, they got a monopoly and they're fleecing us senior citizens.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
God again, Pastor Adela Williams. I have a comment or question that I need to ask in regards to your ordinance to be adopted. Number 2 says zoning ordinance amendment relationship to the sale of alcohol for off-premises consumption. I didn't get that.
So actually, Pastor Williams, that was the ordinance that Commissioner Kelly asked to be postponed until after April, so we didn't discuss it at all. We didn't miss it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
The other thing that I have, last but not least, I wanted to compliment our police officers. they're doing a better job in our community, and I appreciate that. And it says give honor where honor is due, give recognition where recognition is due. So I want to compliment our police officer at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Hello.
evening.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Miller, and I got a couple concerns on our neighborhood. It's Burton and Silver, now Elliott and Silver. And I'm going to speak on the trash issue and the train issue. I talked to my realtor, and he was telling me that, like in California, they have tunnels going under the train, so that way they don't have to blow the horn like they've been blowing. I mean, they blow it all throughout the night. And the police had told me that we have a noise ordinance at 10 o'clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do it all throughout the whole day, all throughout the whole night. I can't even sit on my own porch without doing this all the time. I mean, it's deafening. And we need more police presence in that block, that neighborhood. I had talked to the police chief. I talked to several sergeants. I talked to the sergeant, the captain, and they each said they're going to have police presence over there. It's a neighborhood watch area, but we only have maybe 2 or 3 cops might show up once or twice every week, or not even that much. And it's just terrible over there. We got one house that's a Section 8 house, and before we bought the house 5 years ago, and the neighbors was telling us, people all around us telling us about that house that's next door to us. And I said, well, just let us find out how they are. And before they came over there, they said that the neighborhood was clean, quiet. Just one house would turn that neighborhood upside down. That's what happened. We had the police been over there to the house, they said numerous of times, but they still living over there. This is the only problem house we have. I mean, we got just problems. It's problems galore. They throw trash all over the neighborhood. And then you got the weed trees across the neighborhood, right? I mean, across my house. And the city said each time they was going to take care of that. And, you know, you got a weed tree that's blowing the helicopter seeds, and it's getting enlarging against my house, under my house, growing under my house, causing damage. And it's getting into my sewer system. And they said they were going to take care of that. They don't take care of nothing. You know, I mean, they say they're going to do this, they're going to do that. They never take care of anything. This is Elliott and Silver Avenue, right off of Burton, Southeast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, Stephen Miller had a couple questions about like the trains and horns and all of that. Is there someone who can talk with him to get more information and look up ordinances? Okay, thank you. Next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're supposed to sign in yet?
Oh, it's behind you.
Oh, any closer, I'd trip over it.
That's okay, you can sign when you're done.
Good evening, thank you. Robert Metzger, 312 Prospect Avenue Northeast, Grand Rapids. That is at essentially those south of Michigan Avenue on Prospect. I spoke to this committee 2 weeks ago, and in regards to a matter that actually coincides with some of your comments this morning. And I guess, in a way, I owe you an apology from 2 weeks ago, because I did notice a look on a couple of commissioners' faces that seemed stunned when I referenced what I felt was an arbitrary decision made by the commission. In putting some things together and listening to some eloquent comments about community inclusion or engagement, I started putting a couple things together that finally came together today, and that is looking at the GVSU ramp and the new building and the Spectrum building. One of the things that I've noticed in the last year, and it might have been more than a year, but it's the only place where I can find a line of demarcation that I noticed. Somehow my property has been demarcated into Belknap Park, and it's online that way as well. I don't know where in the city database that happened, but pulling a couple things together, I've received cards over the last year or two referencing some planning going on at Belknap Park, GVSU, and you'll forgive me, I've never been part of Belknap Park, nor have my neighbors. For 50 years, I've been Heritage Hill. So I did not attend any of those meetings, didn't know that any of that really applied to my property or my neighborhood. So I realized in seeing and reading some of the press releases from the CEO of Spectrum Hospital, from the provost for Grand Valley State, even a few commissioners, a lot of folks patting themselves on the back on community involvement, engagement. And suddenly I realized today how important it was that community engagement actually gets used with the prism somebody used regarding those most affected. And I'm pretty sure it was unintentional, but it's my belief that somehow the commission and the city and the efforts in that engagement process disenfranchised half the people affected. Because in talking with all my neighbors within a 2-block radius and with the Heritage Hill Association, no one was aware of that GVSU ramp going in. No one was aware of that light. They were all completely surprised when I brought it up at the last Heritage Hill meeting. And like I said, suddenly it dawned on me it's one of those situations where after a couple $100 million worth of infrastructure project, two parties can both be right and still disagree, and it's simply a matter of frame of reference. So those are the tough words. I'm still asking the commission to revisit a traffic light at Michigan and Prospect, and hopefully you can understand why, from my frame of reference, I feel like it was an arbitrary decision. I certainly understand from yours that everyone felt like they did the right thing. But somehow and then on the nature of community engagement, a solution that maybe you guys have batted around, maybe you haven't.
Your time is up, sir.
Is it? You don't want?
It is.
Okay.
Can you please make sure you sign the sheet behind you? Thank you. Ms. Mary, were you next in line? This gentleman is? Okay. Please, did you sign in? Okay, and Ms. Mary, make sure you sign in while you're waiting. Okay, you're up.
Anyway, my name is Phil Mall, and I've been a West Sider my whole life. I'll be a Grand Rapidian my whole life. I already own my plots in Fair Plains. So anyway, I'm on the board of John Ball Area Neighbors Association, but I'm not necessarily the really vocal guy.
Sir, if you can please pull the microphone closer to you so that the audience can hear your comments. Thank you.
So anyway, I'm on the board of John Ball Area Neighbors Association. Not necessarily the most vocal participant, but I thought it was important for you to be reminded of the value that the neighborhood associations bring to the city budget. I know that much of the work that John Ball Area Neighbors does, if left undone, would become the burden of the city. And for salaries similar to that of just the summer interns, our employees bring years of experience, a passion, and a year-round engagement in our neighborhoods. So I realized I probably was supposed to talk like 2 things ago, but you gave me permission. So anyway, please take that into consideration as you allocate funds, and y'all have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. I know I have a few minutes, so I'm going to just say I have the names on here. Joe Jones, Sunita Lanier, Ruth Kelly, and Dave Allen. So I got y'all numbers last time I was here regarding the Multicultural Festival that we discussed. And so I got it up, and I'm going to give y'all this right here so you can, want to sign that name on there so, if you want to get signed it. And I need to make an appointment, so you can see the appointment, when you can make an appointment, and maybe you can talk to your secretary or you personally, let me know, so I need to meet. But an update on the match fund, I talked to
Asante
Kane, right? He was saying that they They don't have a paper form also. They don't have accessibility for disabled people. So you can look into that. And that's what took me so long to get back with you guys. But right now, moving forward, we need to make an appointment, get ready for the Multicultural Fest. We need like a location so we can know where it's going to be held at. And also, yeah, so signs, let me know when you have an appointment, you know, when you can meet with me so we can discuss the Multicultural Festival. And we already have a theme. The theme is, we all must make a contribution. Together, we are the solution. And I'd like to end with a poem, because last time I came, I did a poem called Generation to Generation. But that was for the kids. And it was like us dedicated to them. But I want this is for us, the older people, the leaders, the community.
Calling older people.
Huh? Well, I'm just saying, for us, let them know that we don't, I'm not saying the kids is not going to take over.
Miss Mary, you know, I'm just picking it.
I know keep saying the kids are going to take over, we don't know what we're doing, we owe, whatever. But I want them to know we the ones started this rap game, so they let them know they're not going to take over for us. We're going to lead the mission. So this poem is called Mission Is Possible.
Okay.
Now, we so often on a mission to find our quest. Some north to south and some east and west. We are American eagles, and yes, we do belong. Let's dedicate ourselves to keeping our nation strong. You don't have to look no further, because you always got more sisters and brothers. Let's soar higher above the rest, so we can acknowledge that we are the best. Do remember old Abe and the battles he had to fight. Don't get caught in action doing wrong, but doing right. Even though time hasn't permitted us to become closer friends, we are still American eagles, and we throw down together until the end. Thank you, children. But so let me know when we can meet, and so we can get this Multicultural Festival going. And thank you very much.
You're welcome. And don't forget your portfolio up here. It's already gone around. Thank you. Mr. Miller, you got a poem to match Miss Mary's poem?
Oh, I can't. No, absolutely. No. You're making me blush. Madam President, many thanks for your interest in the non-smoking issue. I hope I didn't garble that presentation. So on my humble flat on the other side of Lake Chesapeake, which you heard about earlier, the complex invoices the federal government $450 a month. So the feds are getting $5,000 a month just out of my humble flat. And for that, my fellow senior citizens and I, we ought to have non-smoking there as a basic civil right. The prisoners over on Ball, maybe a half mile over or a little more, I don't know how many prisons are there, but they all have non-smoking, as do the guards and visitors and so on. Thank you very much for your interest. And then Citizen Miller, I was here just a little bit earlier on the freight foghorns. I refuse to use the word whistle, they're foghorns. When I was a kid, maybe they were whistles, and they were a delight. My family would go up to the UP for 2 weeks every year to deal with my dad's hay fever along Lake Superior, and there was a rail line along M28, and a freight train would come through maybe 3 times a week, and it was really a delight for our family. Hearing it was a symphony of sounds, orchestral sounds when all those freight cars went back. But now it's torture, and apparently he's around Burton and Sylvanwood. Is at 1600 East. It would be helpful if he would identify the owner of that line, which it might be Mid-Michigan, many ways shifting around. And then there are various freight lines which lease these freight tracks, and so it would be helpful if we could get a handle on that, who's coming through, if there's a particular freight train, if there's a pattern, then the police could be notified. The police could possibly monitor the railroads, if it's possible, railroads back radio dialogue to catch the trains as they come in. The VA out Century is very gracious enough to allow me to sleep with my car down there, and okay, it was fine. But and then I came before you and saying, well, this SLI development, SLIGH, 7 stories high, which would make an outstanding SRO, but those developers plan to convert it into luxury housing. That would certainly never work because of these freight foghorns. So it would be wonderful if the commission would consider addressing this issue. So it's pretty widespread. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close public comment. And now, Commissioners, at 8:28, we will be giving our comments and closing out this meeting.
Yeah.
Make them brief. No, just kidding. Commissioner Repart, we'll start with you.
Thanks for coming out. I'm excited for your investment on Granville Avenue, so thank you for being here, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Just two quick comments. One, Russ talked about that website being down. It was odd. I had just gotten on that website and downloaded the plan as he said it was down, and I checked it again, and I got on it, so it was working. So I'm not sure what's going on. So
I think it's a Chrome.
yeah,
I think it's a browser issue.
yeah, whatever. Yeah, and I'm on. And I'm on Chrome, not Safari. So at any rate, second thing is, just to the general public, I apologize for not being at the last meeting. That was with notice. I know it was. I commiserate with all you for as I did actually read through every single one of the public comment cards, so I could be there with you. But I was in out of state dealing with a rather important affordable homeownership opportunity that we will be making some fairly major announcements on fairly soon that we're pretty excited about. So in light of that, in light of what the discussion was, I thought it was rather timely. So I apologize for not making the last meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Kelly.
Yeah, I too want to congratulate you on your project. I'm excited to visit when it's all open and shop at the farmer's market and go to the restaurants. And Miss Mary, I think if you meet with us, probably many of us would refer you to our Office of Special Events. Yvette Pittman is the woman who helps people with that, and she's does a wonderful job. So I would steer you in her direction and try to make an appointment with her.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Connor. Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, Madam President, I want to thank all who came out on this evening, and I want to give a special shout out to our police department. I have been kept abreast there was an unfortunate incident that took place. It was a shooting in our city on Sunday evening of a young man, 28 years old, and it's my understanding, based on conversations with folks in the community, that our police department has just had not just presence in the aftermath on the street where the young man was shot and killed, but they have just been very gracious in their presence, and it just speaks volumes in terms of allowing people to grieve, and we all grieve differently, and I just want to really, again, recognize the patience and the discernment that's being used by our department, and just want to give kudos and the shout out and recognition for that continued presence, and again, allowing folks to grieve, and just, again, being present, but being patient as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just be brief. Thank you to all who came out and provided comment. We appreciate them, and you all have a great evening. This meeting is adjourned.